everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of our new show called Stacks of Questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's get into what we're going to be doing tonight. So if you don't know me already, my name's Kimberly Jeans. I currently teach at Woodmill High School in Dunfermline, and I have been teaching for about 16 years. Tonight, I've got joining me 2 of my Stacks tutors. I've got Morag Shaw, she's the head of the blue team.
Hello there.
And I've got Colin Lamont as the head of the red team.
Hello.
Hi, and tonight Morag and Colin are going to be going head to head in one of our first challenges ever. So let's get into it and see what challenge they're going to be doing. Okay, so our challenge of the week this week is called One Concept, 3 Checks. So this is going to be used when you've taught your kids something new, something they haven't learned before, and you want to really just check and reflect back on whether or not they understood what you're talking about, right? So there's going to be kind of one idea that these guys are going to have that we'll show you in a second, and we're going to check it in 3 different ways. So we're going to be looking for one quick knowledge check. That could be something small, like a multiple choice quiz, for example. And then we're going to be moving on to a practical or an applied task, something that they can solve to really see if they've understood what it is you've taught them. And then lastly, we're going to be asking Morag and Colin to come up with some sort of reflective or verbal check that basically you could do maybe at the end of the lesson to check in to see whether or not what you've taught your pupils is something that they actually understand. So in order for us to come up with a concept for this week's challenge, we have got these little spinners. So as you know, in the assessment team, we've really been focusing on National 5 and higher. So we're going to see what they're going to be doing. So Colin and Morag, today's level, we're going to start off nice and easy with the National 5. The unit that we're going to be looking at is a concept, something to do with software development. I feel like this has been really easy for you to start off with. And then today's theme. Now, these are just random themes that have come out of our head. If anyone has any good ones that they can add in, then feel free to let us know. But today's theme for your learning is something to do with music streaming. If you can try and pop that in there, extra bonus points, okay? So these guys are going to get a 5-minute timer popped onto my phone. Are you ready? Anyone have any questions? It's good?
All good.
All good. Okay, your time starts now. Now, while they're off doing their challenge, we've got a guest speaker today. So everybody, please welcome the lovely and talented David Jack. Hi,
Hello
David,
there.
how are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm good, thank you. I'm great. So David has been teaching for 18 years and is currently based in Kings Park Secondary School in Glasgow. And he's come along tonight to talk to us a little bit about planning for assessment. So let's just start off, David, if you don't mind, with talking about the big assessments you do throughout the year. When do they happen, for example?
Yep, so it's mostly dictated by the school, of course. The school can do a whole school timetable, but our prelims happen roughly about the 1st or 2nd week of December. Is
that the same for National 5 and higher?
Yeah, that's the whole, because we run a 4th, 5th and 6th year all kind of combined. So we do our prelims the first 2 weeks of December. We do our assignments normally around March, just so maybe like 3-4 weeks before the hand-in date. And we often try and get, we don't know if we'd call it a second prelim, but the database part of the prelim that we left out, if that makes sense. So what we do in December is we get the database section, you know, the optional section at the end, rip it off. They do systems and software in December. We've then got this bit left, and we pick that up normally around March time, which then allows us to combine it all perfectly to help us form an SQA estimate.
That's actually quite similar to me. Has your prelims been in December for quite a while, David? Because mine only recently got changed. I actually had my prelim in sort of the end of January until a couple of years ago, and I feel like it's completely changed my course plan.
Yeah, I've been in a few schools, and when the changes happen, it's a bit of a fright. But since I came to Kings Park, that has always been the case. We did do a model after COVID. We were a bit worried about pupils' programming and not being good enough. And we were worried about, right, we need more time to do programming. We want programming to be closer to the assignment.
Which makes sense.
We did, almost, it didn't work out for us. We've changed back because we did databases and systems before Christmas. We then did the prelim in December, and we did software at the end. But that made it made the prelim too easy.
Yes.
So then when they did the prelim, kids were like, "Oh, brilliant! I'm fantastic at computing." And then actually, when it got to it didn't allow us to put interventions in place. It didn't give us good data. They actually we didn't know what we were working with for the rest of the year. So we quickly changed that back. That was a one flick off. So we now do software and systems right up to the prelim in December, and we do databases afterwards.
Yeah, that's interesting because I found that too. Because what we used to do when we had our prelim at the end of January is we did databases as the first unit, and I mostly did that because I didn't want any. We had quite a lot of movement over the summer, and I didn't want any kids coming in and having missed loads of software kind of theory.
Yeah,
so we did
definitely.
Databases. It was easy to catch up on, and also like the kids were like. You could weed out the ones who really couldn't do National 5 if you started with databases. When kids would say, "Oh, give me a punt, please," like I don't want to be National 4. But if they were really struggling, they would not pass databases. So you knew if they got over 50% in databases, okay, fine. But then it only worked, I feel, because when we got to the prelim at the end of January, we were able to do software, computer systems, and databases. But last year, when we made the change to having the prelims earlier, it was exact same as you. It was so skewed what the evidence was because they'd only done databases and systems, and it wasn't hard enough.
No, it's definitely not. It's not rigorous enough. When you mentioned that kind of bit in June, we really struggle with that. I'm sure a lot of schools notice is the movement of pupils in classes in August now, and it's definitely a gripe of a lot of teachers. Sometimes it could be right up to like the first or second week in September, and you're just like, wait there now. I was meant to be teaching the course 4 weeks in June. I've been teaching it 4 weeks since I've came back. That's 8 weeks of the course that somebody's missed. So for us in June, when it comes to National 5, and all the National 5s, we teach them a bit like project-based kind of programming. So rather than this is an if statement, it's just like, right, let's just solve problems. Let's have a project. What do you want to do? What do you do? It's not, we're not following a curriculum, but they are getting their hands on, like coding.
Okay.
So that then means when I do start coding, maybe around, let's say, September time, I'm starting it with much more structure, so that way if people did come in late in August, they're still getting that rigor. But it does mean you've got people who are better than others, because some people who were in the class in June, but that's always going to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always going to be the case. But I don't tick anything off the arrangements in June. I know whatever I teach in June, I'll probably need to teach again later on.
That's a good piece of advice, actually. And what about like tracking throughout the year? So like practical or written tracking as you go through the year? Because obviously you've got your prelim, but I don't know if like we quite often get like almost a termly or a monthly sort of cause for concerns. Who's not on track? Like, what do you guys do?
Yeah, so a lot of it's just, we do a lot of learner conversations. That's really getting pushed a lot in our school. So not only do we do assessments and learner conversations after that, but then we do whole school tracking and we do a faculty tracking as well. And as faculty head, that's kind of my job, to kind of look at the ones who are sitting at their 9s, 8s and 7s and be like, what's going on here? Particularly, we also track, let's say for our hires, for example, if somebody got an 8 at National 5, and then I'm looking at the tracking data and it's sitting at an 8, a 7, or even a 6, and they get an 8 at National 5, that's somebody I need to call out. It's not just the ones that are right at the bottom, it's also looking at the ones that aren't getting the projected grade into higher.
And what's that tracking kind of based on? Is it end of unit assessments or homeworks or?
Yeah, so we do have end of unit assessments. They are currently in the process of being reviewed, but I think every teacher says that every year, like you're always reviewing your end of unit assessments. So at the moment, I think our higher data, like I said this earlier, we're doing tracking on our higher assessments, end of unit assessments, and so far that tracking data has been really, really good at higher, almost at where our estimates are almost spot on. I think we were like 2% out of our estimates. I can't say the same for our National 5. So our National 5 estimates were way off.
Yeah.
Way off. Now, I've had a wee think about that. Is that because I need to reassess? I need to look at our end of unit assessments and make them better, make them more rigorous, make them closer to SQA standards? Or is this because, we're dual presenting a lot of pupils and we're being aspirational, we've been too aspirational? So that is currently under review.
So David, when you say they're out, would you say that your estimates are higher and they've not performed as well? Because I think at my school we're the opposite, which is really interesting.
So I think we were too aspirational. And then the error with that is let's say you've said someone's going to get a C, right? And they're just about to pass, but then they don't.
Mhm.
Well, if I'm looking at the data and the teacher said, right, I'm estimating them at a C, well, I've not maybe put a national 4 in place for that person.
Yeah.
You know, or I've not put in an intervention for that person, or I've not put a support in for that person. So if I'm looking at all the data and it looks rosy, you know, I can only work with the data that I've got. So
Yeah.
it's up to us to now make sure that our tracking data is going to be as accurate as possible. And for me, we're really trying to tighten up on our end of unit assessments, our feline marking for National 5. And I know it's annoying, and I'm going to sound like, when people are like, oh, you know, if you cross-marked each other's prelims, and the teacher's like, oh, don't get time for that. But actually,
Yeah.
there is merit to it, because if somebody's marking the prelim and they're giving you rubbish data, and then
Yeah.
you're using that data to then plan interventions and all the rest of it, it's useless. So
Yeah.
actually, that cross-marking, especially if you've got somebody in the school who does SQA marking, like, give them a bit of a role in that and say, look, can you have an overview and just do some sample marking of everybody else's to make sure that the data I'm getting out of this assessment is good enough.
And obviously
And
the
that,
assessments need to be good quality too, is what you're talking about. So it's this,
yeah,
everything leads into it, doesn't it?
yeah. So
What about the practical side of the course, David? So we've talked a lot about like end of unit assessments. So like when I get to the end of the software unit, for example, or the database unit, I would do an end of unit assessment for them if it's not prelim time. But I would also do like an assignment. So like the database is just the 2 hours, if you like. Do you guys do that as well, or not so much?
we give them experience of practice assignments, and we give them, let's say, let's use some teacher speak here. We'll use some formative assessment. You know, we'll sit down and we'll talk to them about it. We'll help them with it. I would
Less
love it.
formalized.
Yeah, I'm not sitting marking assignments. I'm just not doing that. And a lot of staff, if they've worked for the SQA, they've never marked an assignment before. So I don't think that's a teacher's place, but I do see the benefit of it if you think there's benefit there.
Well, it's
Not
interesting
something
because
I
that's
do.
something that I do. Something that we do at our school, and we've always done. But what I would say is that perhaps that's what feeds into the fact that my estimates this year were quite like low. Like I had some kids who I estimated as a C band 5 who got A band 2s.
Yeah.
So I don't know like whether that's something that could change, whether it's an impact or not. It's interesting to speak to somebody who doesn't do it and actually finding the opposite.
I mean, I definitely like. I'll make sure the code's good, and I'll make sure the code's working, and I'll make sure they're not cutting corners and things like that, and we'll have a chat about that, and I'll sit and look at their work. When they do the written questions, you know, I'll go over them. They'll peer assess, you know, we'll discuss what a good answer is and all the rest of it. But it's not me sitting down with a red pen and giving them a mark back, because I think that takes away time. I just want to use their time to get 3-4 practice assessments under the belt, and I can't mark 3 or 4 of them. I just the timing of that. So we just go. You finish one, cool, there's another one. You finish one, right, here's another one, and I just get the experience levels up. I also ask them to print off. Once I know it's really, really good, right, that practice assessment's really, really good. Can you print that off and just keep it in your folder, because it's an open book assignment, don't forget that. And then when the kids are then doing their assignment, they've got all that evidence there in their folders.
Yeah. Great. So thank you so much for that. We're going to finish off with just one question of the week because we we're running over in time. So if you were giving advice to somebody who maybe was new, who hadn't had Nat 5, who'd built up to having National 5 for the first time and higher, or maybe just wants to revamp their course, what would your sort of top tip be to consider when you're thinking about putting your course together? Or obviously they've got constraints, as you say before, of like when prelims are, etc. And what's your sort of, you might have covered this already, but what's your top tip, would you say, to give somebody?
I would say if you look at the course, if you count through an exam, National 5 or higher, I'm talking kind of lazy maths here, you're talking 45 to 55% of that paper is going to be software development. So getting the pupils to do software development is, of course, extremely important, and to get them doing assessments with software development in it, give them experience of doing that, so that way the data you're getting out your assessments is going to be useful. Right off June, unfortunately, do what you can with June, like make the most of it, teach them what you can, but realise in the back of your head you're probably going to have to do that again because you're going to have so many new pupils. A controversial one for me, we do databases pretty much exclusively. From what I've seen, schools who do databases, the pupils, the answers are right or wrong. So, you know, there's much more logic there, and I think a lot of pupils actually kind of understand the right and wrong aspect of databases. I think that improves things for us.
Yeah.
Eh,
We've just changed the databases more recently, and I think that it's definitely made a positive impact. So
yeah, and I love making websites. That's probably one of the reasons when I was 14, 15, I got into computing science,
Yeah.
and I do think like making websites has its place,
Mhm.
but for attainment purposes, if you're wanting to raise attainment, I think databases is going to deliver you better results, and therefore, when I say deliver the pupils better results, and really that's what our job is, to make sure that people are getting the best results they possibly can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, David. If you don't
No,
mind
no,
sticking
thanks very
about,
much.
I'm going to get you to be our guest judge this week, and
Oh,
we'll go over
okay.
to Morag and Colin and see if they're finished, if we can check in on how they've
Good
gone
luck,
with.
Morag and Colin. Okay.
So, Morag, Colin, how are you guys doing? Are we feeling like we're finished?
Done.
Done. Smashed it.
There's something there. There's something there, but you know.
Okay, so we're going to go to the blue team first. So, Morag, that is over to you to share with us what you have come up with.
Okay, here we have quick knowledge check. So I'm assuming that because it was quite do you know what? I've forgotten the music streaming thing. So I failed miserably. What I was so concentrating on was software development N5. And I went
Music
into
streaming.
validation. So I was assuming it was a lesson on info validation. And I've got age. Anyway, I'll change it to number of streams, number of downloads. Okay, so for my quick knowledge check, I'm going to present a small section of code towards the end of the lesson. If age, read that as downloads.
Yeah.
Greater than or equal to 0, and downloads less than or equal to 18. So it's going to have that condition in the code. And I started to type up the code, but I ran out of time there. So predict the output if the user enters 5. Predict the output if the user enters 23. So it's a bit, so quick knowledge check, the class. A quick practical applied task. So set a very short challenge. Again, the password for the site, I've got that one this time, needs to be at least 8 characters long, 8 characters in length. Create a small section of code to enter a password and output a suitable error message. Correct, you may proceed type message.
Yep.
And a sort of reflective type check, verbally, possibly. I've gone for 3 short answer questions, I would show on the board. Discuss with a shoulder partner. 1, what's the purpose of input validation? Name 3 types of input validation that you could add to your program coding, and what type of computational construct will be used in a validation check. 3 questions, 1 concept, 3 questions. There you go.
Okay, Colin, let's see what you've come up with.
Well, luckily I went with a different standard algorithm. I did running total or totaling in a loop, depending on what you want to do. So my quick knowledge check is put the steps in the right order. So they've got A, B, C, and then they need to put them from 1, 2, 3. And then my practical task was calculate the total time for all the songs streamed by a user in the day. And you could either do it as a design or you could do it as a coding question. Ask them for the number of songs, enter the running time for each song, calculate and display the total time. And then the kind of check at the end, in pairs come up with a mnemonic to remember the steps for the running total standard algorithm.
Oh, mnemonic, that's nice. I love a mnemonic.
My go-to is always, running total, it's lit, because they love that. And it's loop input total. But that was mine, but they would come up with something much better.
Okay, David, over to you. What do we think? Blue team win this week or a red team win this week? No pressure.
Yeah, I think, Colin, I'm going to have to give this to the red team. I apologise, Morag, but I think the pupils would definitely understand the idea of the total kind of length of listening time. I think they'd be able to relate to that scenario quite well.
Very well done, Colin. So let's go over to our scores on the doors from week 1, episode 1 of our mini-sode of Stacks of Questions. Here we go. So we've got 1 point to the red team and 1 point, no points to the blue team yet. Thank you so much for joining us, David. We really appreciate it. Morag, Colin, you've been absolute superstars, and everybody who's been watching at home, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you all in episode 2. Speak to you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.